Many artists and arts organizations have a secret fear that our art doesn't really matter to the world around us, that it isn't practical or tangible enough to make a positive difference to a world in need. Now, this is a view that stands in contrast with what our hearts know about the purpose and power and value of the arts. And yet, the society around us constantly bombards us with messages otherwise, that the arts are just frivolous, that they're nice to have, that they are more like hobbies that are best set aside when thinking about more important practical concerns. And there's several consequences to this. One is this sort of grief that we hold as creatives and those who support creativity. Again, this really contradicts one of our core values, this knowledge that our hearts hold about the value of what we do. And it also has practical consequences where it's really difficult to be a professional artist. It's really difficult to get funding as an arts organization. The arts and music programs are the first thing to be cut from schools. And so today, I'm going to be walking through what I believe to be is the core of the issue here, especially in terms of arts schools, community arts programs, and other nonprofits. What the sort of disconnect that I see in how arts schools advocate for themselves, how they communicate about the value of what they do, the disconnect between that and what I'm talking about in terms of this core understanding of the creative magic that's truly possible. So in the beginning here, I'm going to give my core understanding of what this issue is about, and then I'm going to talk about what I see as the solution and several practical steps that arts organizations, especially arts schools, could implement to address this and thereby re-engage and rediscover that creative magic and use that creative magic as the very lifeblood of their organization to improve student and teacher and staff engagement and to improve community impact and also to improve the bottom line. So here we go. At the core of this issue that I'm talking about here is the failure to properly understand the relationship between our love and our survival. And without this understanding, we will never be able to fully justify the value of the arts to those with the capacity to fund them. So this is not just an issue among arts organizations, this is really a microcosm of the dominant paradigm of our society, Western industrialized society. And there's a paradox at the middle of this. So to the dominant paradigm of our society, the value of the arts seems irretrievably intangible. Can you clothe yourself, feed yourself, house yourself with a painting or a piece of music? Obviously not. However, this kind of utilitarian thinking, while it does have truth to it, it's only half the truth. Think about it. If your entire life, if the entire society was solely focused on the sort of hard scrabble, bare bones, utilitarian kind of thinking, then would that really lead to a life, a culture, a society that was worth pursuing? See, this kind of utilitarianism is just really short-sighted. It works, it's true enough in itself, but in the long term, it fails to create a life that's actually worth living. So while we absolutely need utilitarian thinking for certain aspects of survival, it's our love, it's the magic, that creative magic that the arts can bring, that provides the direction and reason for going on. Many of the challenges that arts institutions face come from unduly agreeing to this dominant paradigm, to this way of regarding everything in terms of bare bones utilitarian thinking. So to be able to ensure their funding, to be able to attract talent, be able to attract students and retain them, there's a sort of mission creep that happens in 1,000 tiny ways. We tend to dismiss the creative magic because we think of it as being kind of extra, and with the financial pressure, we make decisions more and more from survival and utilitarian thinking. But what that does is that we end up shooting ourselves in the foot, because what that does over time is that robs our organizations of the very thing that justifies our being there. The very reason to keep going is that creative magic and the love of the arts, right? What's going to attract funding other than a reputation for genuine creative magic? What's going to help attract and then hold on to students other than a real experience, a juicy experience of creative magic? What's going to help attract and hold on to teachers and staff other than that same thing? What's going to be how are we going to get to the positive impact on the community that our hearts know is possible without the creative magic? It all comes back to that. Basically, when we're engaged in this mission drift that happens, when we fail to understand the proper relationship between our love and our survival, several things can happen. And these are the disconnects that I so often see in arts organizations, art schools, etc. So basically, the umbrella is a disconnect between what our hearts know to be possible about the arts, the reason we got into this in the first place, and what actually goes on in the day-to-day operations. So speaking from my own life, I'm a violinist, I'm a violin teacher, and I've worked at community arts schools and others over the years, and I saw this disconnect in terms of how I felt towards the school. And for me, it felt like just a job. I was just going through the motions, and this despite really loving music and really loving my students, right? There was something about the way the organization was run that disconnected me from that love that I had for the music, so that it just ended up feeling like a job. And there was none of that creative magic. And I could see this in the other teachers. There was a high turnover rate with teachers because they didn't have that creative magic. They didn't have that experience. And this is also what leads to turnover and burnout among teachers and staff. This is also what leads to a lack of student engagement. For the students, it's the same thing. It's just a place to go for half an hour or an hour to get that lesson or take that class and then zip home. Of course, people are busy. There's lots of reasons for this. But my belief is that the spontaneous connections and creativity that we all want to have happen in these institutions and our schools will happen if we foster it. And it's not being fostered in all the ways. Again, despite our best efforts, despite the love for art and creativity and magic that we all hold in our hearts. In addition, we can think about the kind of impact that we want to have on communities. We could really, I have this vision of a community arts program or a gallery or something like this being a hub of community activity, a place where people's needs, their emotional, spiritual needs, are being met through the arts. But without the intentional cultivation of that creative magic, then again, the community will see that arts organization as just a utilitarian function, and there's not going to be that sense of what draws them into, or what might draw them into engaging more and getting more benefit from our arts and music programs. So, in all of this, feeds into the big problem, which is around funding, right? How can we attract funding with all these disconnects when we have this mission? All these arts and music programs all have these beautiful missions, but I don't see them fulfilling them. And without that fulfillment of the mission, without it being real, without it being juicy, like a juicy place to work, a juicy place to study, a juicy place to come for the inspiration, healing, and connection that we all know that the arts are for, then how can we justify our existence to funders of various kinds? So all of this then creates this heartbreaking situation where the operation, the mission drift that has gone on, changes the operations of arts organizations such that those operations reinforce that secret fear I was talking about a couple minutes ago. We become places of irrelevancy. And then we can't fulfill our missions. And then we can't get the funding we need to fulfill our missions, right? And to me, this is heartbreaking. And yet, it is also something that can simply, maybe not easily, but simply be addressed. And so that's what we're going to get into here next. My answer to all these challenges is what I call Soulforce. Soulforce is a term that comes from Mahatma Gandhi's movement. He called it Satyagraha. And to me, it means the transformative, creative energy that comes from facing your challenges, whether creative or otherwise, from a place of wholeness, aliveness, and connection, rather than the kind of force and control and utilitarian kind of thinking that so pervades our society. This is where the creative magic is. This is what every artist wants to express in whatever medium they're using. This is what every audience wants to experience. This is what every teacher wants to impart to their students beyond just like getting the techniques right. And this is what every student wants to learn how to be able to express and give form to and bring into the world, right? This is the thing, what I call Soulforce. And I've written a whole book about this. I'll put the link to that down below. When an arts organization begins to center Soulforce in every aspect of their operations, from the administrative to the artistic to the teaching and everything in between, then amazing things happen. Everybody starts coming to life. Connections happen among students and teachers and staff, and people feel more aligned and with a larger sense of mission and connected to something larger than themselves. Right? So there's this reignition of passion and commitment among students, teachers, and staff. There's an engaging environment that happens where spontaneous connections and creativity just happen. And importantly, this builds resiliency, sustainability, and fulfillment for everybody involved. So everybody wants to come back. It's that intrinsic motivation. All the staff, the teachers, the students, the parents, they all want to be involved. And when that happens, the sky's the limit. It's so much easier to get the funding, to justify our existence, right? Because there's the thing that we've all wanted, that soul force, that creative magic. It's happening, as opposed to being merely something that's sought after and striven after and grasped after, but never actually reached. To me, Soulforce is what the focus of arts advocacy should be, because it's at the center of everything that matters about what we do. When we get clearer on Soulforce, when we put it in the center of how we teach, how we create, how we run organizations, then it's obvious. It's just so obvious to everybody involved that the arts are relevant to the world around us, to everybody involved. And isn't that what we strive to demonstrate here? Isn't that what we're trying to communicate? So I've been talking for a little while here, and now I want to finish out this presentation on some of the practical, tangible applications of Soulforce. And this will be specifically to community arts schools, but you'll see parallels to other kinds of organizations. So first of all, what's so critical is not only to align your actions with your mission and your vision, but to have a mission and vision that actually inspires people, actually wants people to get involved, invites people in. When I've been, when I was a violin teacher at certain arts schools, I read their mission statements, and you know what? I felt nothing. It looked good on paper. I could see why they wrote their mission statements in that way, but I didn't connect with it at all. It was just so boring. And just got to be honest here. And how can you expect to foster creative magic with a boring mission? And there's a lot of reasons why people choose missions like that. But without that juicy, alive mission that actually matters to the people involved, and without getting them on board, actively getting them on board through meetings and trainings on the mission, like how to align how you teach and how you do admin work in alignment with this mission. Without that, then you're lost. Then everybody's going to default to the status quo of what they know. There's going to be disconnection everywhere. All right, so the first piece is around aligning to a mission that inspires. And the second is to do trainings based on that. We can't just have that mission sort of locked away in the website or on the wall, right? There has to be active training. And this goes at a couple different levels. Training for staff members, the admin. This is not typically seen as a creative position, to be the receptionist or the accountant or whatever it is. But getting everybody involved on the staff in the mission, showing them how to approach their job that forwards the mission is critical. If you don't have that, it's like having an orchestra and the whole cello section is off, checking their watch, playing da 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 da, just going through the motions where everybody else is trying to be creative and expressive. It's not going to work. And so helping staff get in touch with why they're working at this arts organization in the first place, and what they want to accomplish, and how they can move the mission forward is absolutely critical. And it's the same thing for teachers. A lot of music teachers and arts teachers, of course, have formal training, but this is more than I want to get into here. But a lot of that training happens within the dominant paradigm of utilitarianism that I was talking about before. Again, I'm a violinist. I went to music school, and when I was there, I really treated my body like a machine. I was practicing with so much tension and effort, and that caused incredible problems for me. My effort and tension caused injuries in both arms. I could barely play violin anymore, and it was all part of this way of thinking. And over the years, I've had to unlearn how to approach the violin. I've had to unlearn how to teach, so I don't impart those effortful, disconnected ways of creating to my students. And so one thing that's very practical approach here is to provide trainings for teachers so that they can help foster creative magic in their students. And similarly, we can hold workshops for students, something like how to develop intrinsic motivation. So one workshop that I teach is called From Have to Love to, instilling intrinsic motivation in young art students. And this, to me, is so central to keeping students interested and engaged and coming back, and for their flourishing, and of course for the school's bottom line. We got to have students interested in and engaged and wanting to practice, wanting to come back. And if there's this feeling of I have to practice, it feels like a chore, then of course they're not going to want to do that. And we're going to have to, the parents are going to have to fight with the kids, and the teachers are always going to be wrangling with the kids to help them practice more. It's really not good. But when the kids are intrinsically motivated, all those problems disappear. Everybody flourishes. All right, and so all of this is a part of a movement towards activating creative magic in the culture of an organization, right? And this is what it all really comes down to. Developing a culture of soul force. And there's a lot that goes into that, as you can hear, about the mission and practical steps. And this is really my mission in life, is to be able to enable this. So what I see for the future of arts organizations, arts schools, is where they can be hubs for Soulforce, hubs for genuine creative magic. And as a result, there's an improvement to the bottom line. There's an improvement to teacher, student, parent, staff engagement, and retention, attracting new talent. And what this does ultimately is fulfill the positive impact that our hearts know is possible through the arts. And answers the question, does our art matter in this world, with a resounding yes that we'll feel it in our bones. So personally, I believe that creative magic, Soulforce, is the lifeblood of every arts organization. Without it, arts organizations become irrelevant and they slowly die away. But with it, as a guiding principle, arts organizations of all kinds and everybody involved flourish, become full of life, really attractive, beautiful places to be. So if this message resonates with you, if you want your arts organization to become a hub of creative magic, then let's book a free exploration session where I will show you how Soulforce can answer your real-life challenges, the practical, nitty-gritty, difficult challenges, more quickly and more effectively than you might realize. All right, my name is Joseph Arnold. I'm a creative magic mentor, a violinist, Alexander Technique teacher, author of an award-winning book, and director of the Soulforce Institute. I really look forward to meeting with you and hearing from you. Thank you so much for listening to this presentation. I'll see you next time.